Okay, Ben, we're live.
Switch back to the agenda. All right, welcome everyone to the Orange Township Board of Trustees special meeting. Today is Monday, April 12th, 2021. Call this meeting to order. Ms. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Grumbles,
Here.
Ms. Taranto, here. Mr. Rivers.
Here.
All right,
Before we get started here, I need to speak to my availability for this meeting. When the request was made for a special meeting, I responded and said that I was unavailable Friday. I didn't really want to put through a public email that I had an immediate family member in the hospital. Despite my request to wait until all three of us board members can be present for all the topics that were proposed, the chairman steamrolled over me and called a meeting. So now I am on a township call while I'm waiting for an immediate family member to come out of surgery here as we speak. So I don't have the words for the lack of respect and decency given to a fellow board member by Trustee Grumbles. Earlier today, we had a volunteer steering committee for our parks kickoff plan. I felt necessary to join that meeting. For when I spoke with the vendor of late last week, the representative informed me that he had been contacted and told by Trustee Grumbles to cancel the meeting. So not knowing what might happen, pretty much felt forced to take part in that meeting and concern over who might show up or how our volunteer board could be treated. And then this afternoon, before I get on this call, I am contacted by our HR consultant. She said that as her HR duty, she felt that she had to share with us that she had been contacted from employees who had reached out, and she had called me because she knew I would answer, but that multiple employees are uncomfortable with the current working condition. There is extreme frustration and a feeling that things are going backward. There is extreme dissatisfaction with how our administrator is being treated, and there is a reoccurring theme of overreach by one trustee. 2 of our employees are ready to resign. She said that we have an HR crisis. So with that being said, I think it's intervention time. Of the 18 townships we have in Delaware County, you can add heck city council and school board with that. I don't think there's any meeting that's run as poorly by the chair or president. We had asked at the beginning of this year, these meetings be kept for under 2 hours or less. We've had rambling meetings go on for 3-4 hours. I think the poor behavior and conduct has become a litigation risk at this point. I've exhausted all options and having our very best and brightest reach out for offer and guidance and support in helping our chair, who really lacks any experience, but all have been shunned. So we need to stop. We need to properly vet all of this to move forward and get things back on track. We need to diffuse the tension, I think, in the building. All of our actions and words have consequences and long-term impact, and we are at a place where I think we need to be very careful of how we move forward. If we don't have a chair, our vice chair acts as chair. And at this point, I would like to see us vacate the chair and have our vice chair. I don't want to put anyone on the spot to make any decisions today, but I would like to see our vice chair work with our administrator going forward.
Appreciate your comments, Trustee Rivers. I would remind you that special meetings are limited to the agenda topics.
Oh, I've
And
got
so
the agenda here in front of me, and this is all covered in the agenda.
Okay. I don't see HR Go covered in the agenda. So
Well, township administrator is.
okay. Well, the comments
As
you
far
made
and
were
it's in organizational structure is as well. So as far as the position of chair, I think that falls under our organizational structure.
Okay, well, again, I would, that could be open for interpretation, and I'm not a lawyer, so I would defer that to our legal counsel. But the meeting for the Parks Master Plan was scheduled previously and forwarded to myself. So the fact that you chose to attend that meeting, it has nothing to do with this meeting or subsequent.
No
Your
trustee
comment,
should be reaching out to any of our vendors and telling them what they can and can't do individually. Just as
I
we
did
have an
not,
agreement with Rumpke that is a multi-township agreement, and no trustee should be reaching out and trying to renegotiate Rumpke deals.
no one did that. And so, if I have a complaint or a concern from a resident and want to inquire as to what's going on or the status of a contract we have in place, there's nothing that prohibits me from contacting a vendor and inquiring. And I've had multiple conversations with them from a communication standpoint, not from a contractual standpoint. So I would beg to differ with what's taken place. It seems like you're speaking on secondhand information quite a bit. So I can understand that, but the meeting dialogue around last week was isolated to Thursday and Friday. When those dates ran out of time to be approved, there was a subsequent effort to get a meeting in place for today. In large part, the last meeting carried over because of an unexpected attendance from two people that were not on the agenda that you organized. And so I would ask you to consider the part you played in that. The purpose of special meetings has been established in our township. And last year, we had meetings to approve a loan agreement. We had meetings to approve special meetings to approve members of OTALK, and a variety of topics. And what we always tried to do was take advantage of a special meeting so that when we had regular meetings, the agenda wasn't overwhelming. The problem we're having now is that items and actions are carrying over meeting to meeting. It's not a function of the chair. It's a function of inputs and decisions and details that will allow us to move through and finalize actions that are done and get them off the agenda. So the longer those items continue to be on the agenda, it just adds to the workload and discussion we have to have. So part of the reason for having a special meeting is to get an update on old tabled items and move forward. And I can appreciate the efforts from HR to reach out and share concerns they've received. And I can understand that. There's also concerns that stem from that entity itself that I've discussed before, that could contribute to potential liabilities for the township. Provided that content to the board collectively without hesitation to consider. So there's no effort or initiative here. At any point in time, if the way I interact or communicate with staff is of concern, everything's a public record, and I'm happy to provide that. From an email standpoint, from a phone call standpoint, text message standpoint, I would have trouble with the comments you made and how I communicate or how often or what we discuss with staff. So I just don't think that those comments were, would be established. But I understand your effort here and the intent. I think when we go to executive session, we can discuss it as it pertains to the agenda. And once the board collectively decides that the way ahead, then we can move forward. But
Special meetings typically are for urgent issues or one specific topic. You've got a full
Mr. Rivers, I
agenda
reviewed
here.
every special
You've got a
meeting
full
request.
agenda. You've got a full agenda here, and you didn't extend me the common courtesy of properly scheduling a meeting for the three of us. I can't sit on the call, another 3-hour call here when I have family to attend to. You've put me in a terrible position.
We all have private matters as well, Mr. Rivers. I
And
have
I
a
afford
family
my
member
fellow
that passed
board
away.
members the luck. I afford my fellow board members the time to take care of what's important and don't burden them with non-urgent matters. Because I understand they do have other responsibilities and commitments outside the township and would never put them in that type of position.
Now, you scheduled a special meeting last year without consensus, so I would beg to differ. Like I said, everything's documented, and you're contradicting yourself here. So,
No, I would completely disagree. I've never,
okay,
when a
well,
fellow board
we can-
member has requested to be present at a meeting to make sure they have time, I've confirmed their time and have given them that decency versus jamming a agenda through without hearing back from them. And it's
Okay.
this is the type of behavior that's led to the current situation that we're in internally.
Well, there's a lot of contributing factors that have led to this, Trustee Rivers, and I'm happy to discuss those in an open session that you're accountable for as well, in a proper tone and a professional manner. But I think that, like I said, if you want to go back and go through emails and agenda topics for special meetings, which I actually did when you sent your previous email last week, where you qualified what a special meeting's for. If you look at special meetings that you initiated last year and you look at the agenda topics, I don't think they're consistent with what your current qualifications are.
I 100% disagree.
Okay, well, that's great. I mean, that's why there's three of us, right? You can have a subjective position, and the two of us can, the other two, and that takes, a quorum to move forward. So, we met about multiple different matters last year that could have been tabled or waited, and in a special meeting. Getting back on the agenda,
So is this going to be
There's-
another 3-hour meeting then today?
I guess it will depend on the progress and how we move forward.
Okay, because I can't
discussion.
sit on a 3-hour meeting.
Well, that's a decision you can make. I mean, we all have our priorities that we set, and if you choose not to be a part of a meeting, or that you have to leave, or that you can't stay, I mean, we can, that's not something that I can control. With the first agenda item, that we have to move into executive session. There's one thing that we have to reconcile from the prior meeting. Trustee Rivers' motion to go to executive session, there was no second or vote. So the legal guidance we received was that I'm going to read the first purpose of going into executive session, which is to reconcile what happened before.
Yeah, I
And there will
spoke
be
with our legal counsel this morning and I got different
All right.
different
Well, I have
opinions
an
on this.
email from Christopher Betts and a conversation that we had on the phone. So I'm just going to
Well, I'd like to
read.
table this till Monday because I don't think this is correct.
Okay, well, I have an email, and your tactics here are well noted, Trustee Rivers, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. And if you don't want to participate, that's up to you. If the vote doesn't come through, then we can postpone. Make the motion to approve resolution 21-116, enter into executive session for the sole purpose to consider the appointment, employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, to reconcile procedural error from April 5th, 2021 regular meeting. Additionally, make a motion, the same motion to apply to executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, or demotion of a public employee.
Second,
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
yes.
Mr. Rivers.
I'll abstain.
All right, if you could create a breakout session, I would appreciate it. Ms. Kraft, Ms. Taranto, Mr. Rivers, and myself are invited to attend executive session. All right, we'll just wait for the rest of the participants to return and we'll proceed at that time. Okay, I make a motion to approve resolution 21-117 to return to regular session.
Is there a second?
Sorry, second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Okay, so in the executive session, we discussed the prior meeting content to bring it into compliance, which we discussed in the prior meeting. We had discussed a potential mentoring opportunity and then shifted into current conversation where we discussed employment matters with the township, with both the administrator and director operations role. So now I'm going to transition to regular session topics. And the first topic is discussion and possible action of the township administrator. Based on conversation, we'll need to take formal action in open session. And the state that we're in right now, it's in the township's best interest to obtain legal counsel to assist with the proper direction way ahead in forming a final decision on how to navigate forward with a township administrator role. In the interim, I'm going to make a motion to suspend the township administrator effective immediately with pay and benefits, pending township council recommendation on next steps.
Is that your
That's my official motion.
second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers. Mr. Rivers.
No, and I'd like to congratulate the board on erasing all the progress that we've made in the past year.
Right. Val, see that Mr. King is logged off. We'll need to contact Mr. King and obtain his phone and computer and access card to the facilities and coordinate any material or belongings that are in the building that belong to him and get those returned as well.
Okay.
All right. The second topic is discussion and possible action on the director of operations. So almost 3 weeks ago, we met as a board and discussed the open director of operations role. And we were provided a list of resumes. The township had already interviewed 2 candidates, and they provided the board with their feedback. And we had agreed to provide a list of top candidates from, I think, 52 resumes now that we received to Val and our administrator, our office manager and our administrator, to consolidate the list and allow interviews to be scheduled subsequent to that in order to find someone and decide upon them and move forward. Over the last 3 weeks, and we've been waiting on Trustee Rivers to respond to that request so that we could move forward. Everybody else had provided their list of candidates. And so at this point, we're 3 weeks behind, and we need to alter the process accordingly so that we can find someone. Val, I know you've sent me the list of candidates that you received, and there was expected overlap between all of the board members and the fiscal officer and the staff picks, and understanding that there would be a couple of unique candidates that each person identified as having an interest in interviewing. So I believe you have a pretty good list, and I know I provided you with an interview tool that you could use via Excel to set the times up for efficiency, where we would have a round robin type interview. I know we did that last year when we interviewed for the administrator position. And did you take a look at the tool, Val?
Yes, I'm just
waiting
for
Direction. Okay. I don't know if there's any concerns from the other board members, but I would like to move ahead with that today and giving direction to our office manager. And if there's candidates that are not on the list, if she could probably email that out to everyone for alignment again. And if there's candidates that aren't on the list that you expressed interest in, I don't think it would be problematic to have them added and consolidated and scheduled and sent back out because in the interest of time, we need to get that finalized. Trustee Taranto or Trustee Rivers, any comments or preferences there?
No, it sounds like a way ahead.
Okay, it sounds like we have a quorum then and consensus on way to move forward. Val, just to confirm. And I know, Val, that you created that template on actions coming out of board meetings. Really good template that I appreciated you putting together. And so one of the actions for this one would be that we had received consensus on setting up interviews for the consolidated or combined list of candidates that you received from the elected officials. If you receive any updates from Trustee Rivers that aren't on that list, that you can add those to the list, and we'll move forward accordingly. Is that in agreement with that, Trustee Taranto and Trustee Rivers?
Yes.
Okay, we got a quorum there and consensus. So, Val, I'm not sure what the candidate's availability will be, but in the tool, if you recall, there was a special section or the way that the candidates that have already interviewed, they're slated on that can be moved around, and I'm happy to help you if there's clarity needed. Okay.
Okay.
The next item is organizational structure with the liaison roles and OTALK. One of the challenges that surfaced at the prior meetings was concern over that contributing to a lack of alignment with the board as opposed to helping with alignment. And I think that originally was the intent. Each board member has an area that they are supposed to be assisting from a board level with to keep everyone in alignment and offer feedback and advice, that type thing. And in combination with OTALK, which is our outreach communications committee, I think what we've seen in the past year plus is that, and Trustee Taranto voiced these concerns at the organizational meeting this year, that it might not be working effectively. And I tend to agree with that now based on events that this year specifically have really shed light on it. And I know it makes it difficult too, because there's assumptions and kind of implications that if you have a liaison, all that information's, good to go and getting back and communicated with the rest of the board. And so either way, the concern expressed by Trustee Taranto was that, it's not really accomplishing anything in that regard, because each board member is going to inquire and have to discuss due to open meetings anyway. And so I don't think it makes sense to continue personally with the liaison assignments. I think that it's has the potential actually to undermine the intent of having a board and what the law really lays out for formal action, and what's intended to take place where there's board alignment and direction is at the board's guidance, not one or two or whatever board members individually, but stemming from open dialogue and an open session. Trustee Taranto, do you have any comments? Trustee Rivers?
I just had a lot of concerns. We haven't had minutes. We haven't had updates. Kept in the dark. My concerns with the latest person put on OTALK, that it was conflict of interest, has kind of proven that it has been. I think the intention of the board was a good one, but it never went the direction that it was intended. We all had consensus that we were going to use it to have breakout committees. We were all encouraged to go and get people to sign up, to volunteer, to be part of those committees. I had a good handful of very good quality people. They were all ignored, and that whole thing fell by the wayside. It never happened. So I don't think it hasn't been a benefit to Orange Township since they did the branding, when Lisa Kraft was the chair of that board. It was very efficient. So I just haven't seen anything. I did speak with a recent OTALK member a little bit about it, but it's not recorded. It's not on YouTube. Nobody can follow it. The trustees meet via Zoom, but yet, and people can join in and watch. But for some reason, this particular board, Mr. Rivers was asked to have it recorded. He refused to do that. So it's really hard to know what's even happening there.
All the minutes are up to date. Everything is on the website. There wasn't a whole lot of activity for the past year, as all the events were canceled, and we didn't have a lot of the things that OTALK would work on due to COVID. There has been work with the website. There was the parks open house that OTALK supported last year, so there was activity, and OTALK has never been recorded. It was always done minutes by hand, and there was no one that ever denied, as far as recording or whatnot. It's an advisory board.
It was always recorded. It was always
No, there was
recorded
never any recordings.
until you became the liaison.
That's not true.
It
never
wasn't recorded before when I started back in 2017 or 18.
There's
didn't
no
record
audio
it.
recordings. It was the business advisory or the business economic advisory committee. Then it transferred over into, and it grew into OTALK, but it was always handwritten notes.
So the minutes from 2 years ago, are those the ones that were just uploaded to the website?
No, everything's, well, the last meeting, because you can't approve minutes until you meet again. So the last meeting from 2020 was uploaded, as they just had the opportunity to approve them.
None of the minutes
Of the 5
online are
people that you
updated.
have, you've got a great volunteer board. I mean, you've got John Altieri, who has been with us since it was the Business Economic Advisory Committee. You've got
Great
Tony
guy.
Benishek with Preservation Parks, who I know is super excited about this parks plan. You've got a great group there of people. I know Kim Boston was recently appointed. and was discussed when she was appointed about what a great addition she was. So you've got 5 wonderful people that are volunteering, no compensation, that are there to help. So to have all this negativity piled in, it's unfortunate.
I don't think it's negativity. I think it's talking about how the meetings need to be run legally, number one,
All the
and,
meetings are legal. There is nothing issues as far as
and make
you
it
can go around.
accessible to.
There's nothing wrong with minutes being, handwritten minutes, and that's how actually it's mostly done throughout the
But
county.
it
So
can take 2 years.
everything as far as the legality side of that, there's no issues.
No, 2
Well,
years.
there is. The minutes aren't online. I just checked. They've not been put online since February 2019. And OTAK is considered a public body if you look at the definition, legal definition of a public body.
Correct. And all the minutes have been submitted. So if they're not updated on the website, I couldn't give you an answer as far as why they haven't been updated on the website, but they all have been submitted and are on hand at Township Hall.
So it's not a function of the committee members. No one's attacking them or their merit or any of that. It's the
Absolutely.
management. It's the management of OTAK that's being brought into question.
Yeah,
And we
I
talked
know
about
the
it.
chair and vice chair
We
both
talked
have
about
reached
it
out
since-
to all of the elected officials. And we discussed this at our last meeting as far as moving forward and with subcommittees. And that was one of the things that, they were working on.
Yep.
So, I
And
mean,
we talked about,
that's the role of, the committees. You give them things to work on and they come back with their proposal. They've been handed that, and there's no need for us to micromanage or sit in on every meeting and be a part of, have our hand in everything. You got 5 wonderful people there. Let them come up with a proposal and some subcommittees, bring that back to the board and decide, what's the best way to move forward. Nothing wrong with that.
well, the township worked together last year to put together a list of subcommittees and proposals and framework. That was,
That was actually put together before your term started. And I think some of that falls on the board as far as communication and, where OTAK has gone. And obviously, had a lot of disruption last year with COVID, putting us, we didn't have any events. We didn't have anything to work on.
well,
So
I think there's stuff to work on. That's what we talked about. And even though committees were discussed before my arrival, they were rediscussed upon my arrival at the organizational meeting. I worked with our staff.
and we discussed
And they
this at our last
contributed-
meeting and said that they were working on that. We'll be bringing that forward. That was just given to our chair and vice chair is the list of subcommittees and things to present.
There was a flow chart and everything developed. In April of last year, it was finalized that our department heads and our staff contributed to how it would help them and be a benefit. I know our fiscal officer arrived and said that there were some areas that she wanted to have as well at that meeting. And it was sent out and nothing came of it.
Well, I
And-
believe they've been meeting with the chair and vice chair in the last, 2 to 3 weeks, and putting this together. So
Okay, but it doesn't resolve the issue about, minutes being put out. The requirement is that they have to be done in a timely fashion and posted.
So why
And
don't you reach out to
having-
the committee and share these concerns? And I'm sure they'll be happy to put that together and work with the board and put together a plan going forward. That's what it's in the process now.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do that. But the conversation we're having right now is on the current structure, and you're the OTAK liaison. And these concerns have been shared with you going back over a year, and nothing's been done to remedy them. And that's why we're having a conversation today about OTAK. So,
Right, and as I stated in the last meeting, these are all things that are being worked on. You have 2 members right now on the board that were part of the branding project. Probably would be a good resource for you to sit down with and share how we did the branding project and can enlighten you to a lot of things.
I'm fine with catching up on how things were done in the past. The concern I have is that the liability of the township and that we're being transparent in handling matters. And when I look at the next item that pertains to the master plan and what's transpired there, it does nothing but add to the concern I have that we have an outreach and communications committee taking formal action that is doing work on behalf of the board with two board members clueless on what's happening in our township. And as the parks liaison, I have asked repeatedly for updates, both in open session via email and text, and received nothing to date still. I received the documents associated with our contract. I have not received anything as far as where we are. And so to address the accusations you made at the beginning of this meeting and as they pertain to the Parks Master Plan, you're right. I reached out after I clicked onto the website that's been developed unbeknownst to the board outside of the end of March when the link was sent to us, and found out who was working on it. And I sent them a message and said, hey, can we have a call? And when we spoke, I let them know that, I have a timeline that starts in November. I don't know what's going on. And would they entertain coming to a board meeting to catch up the rest of the board so we can provide consensus and get us caught up?
Yeah, that's inconsistent and inconsistent with majority of things that you've said this meeting. So there is consistency there.
What did I say this meeting that's not consistent with that? Everything I'm telling you is
You tried to
document.
cancel our meeting today. And, as far as where we're at now, we've got a huge response as far as the surveys. You've got a group that's doing a great job and this project's just starting. So if there's anything that, as far as changes or things that need to be addressed, it's just, the project is just kicking off. So to try and come in and put an axe to it and to stop the meeting from moving forward, it's just absurd.
I guess
Well, no
the
one's trying to
point is-
stop.
The
No one's
point is,
trying to stop progress.
Yeah. Ben, the point is at no time was there a board discussion to have OTALK head up the parks master plan.
We didn't even agree on who a steering committee was going to be. It was just handled in a vacuum. And the
It's
gentleman
no
at the parks.
different than the branding projects when it was handled. We didn't go through any of that with the branding project. What's the point of having OTALK if we have these projects and OTALK's not going to handle it?
There's a large difference between a master plan for a specific department and a branding project that has to do with branding the township.
Both were large
what you're-
investments.
what
Both
you're
were large
sug-
investments that carried a great degree of importance.
Okay, hey, Ryan, who handled the zoning, the recent zoning plans? Was that done by OTAK?
That's completely
The
different.
outreach for that and all the organization for a plan that has to do
Right.
with
An
zoning?
advisory board's not going to handle zoning.
Okay,
Outreach.
but they'll
surveys.
handle a master plan that's rooted in another department without any of that department's involvement.
Hey,
We're
if you
in the
want to chase
process.
off, like I said, we've got a good group and we got a good project going here. If you
No
wanna
one's
chase them
objected
off,
to that.
That's your business.
You're trying to turn this into a discussion about something it's not.
No.
No, yes. The discussion is about you and you specifically and the way you've managed this in a silo and not communicated with the rest of the board.
I've managed it in a silo. Who's
You've
handled the community gardens? Has the board voted on any of that?
Yes, they have.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, you talk about being in a silo.
That
Are
was,
you directing employees with that
That
project?
was, am I directing employees in the
Yeah.
process?
Yeah,
Everything that's been discussed with the master plan has been shared in an open session. The administrator said he didn't have the capacity to help with it and the team didn't have the capacity to do the online. So I said that I would take care of it and I did. The approval for the POs, for all the actions that have taken place, the lease discussions, all of that's happened in an open session.
for the community
So
gardens.
I guess I'm confused what you're referring to. I would expect that if, in the absence of a parks director and an administrator who said that he didn't have the capacity to help, and when I said that I would take care of it and that I would be happy to take leadership in it, which the board gave consensus for me to do, that me contacting the manager of our parks department to ask them, to assist and if they could help would be appropriate.
No, I'm referring to where you made the comment about working in a silo with the community gardens and the direction of employees and the things that have gone on with community gardens. If you want to talk about working in a silo, that's working in a silo.
Yeah, well, I would disagree. I've discussed that repeatedly in an open session and I forwarded updates via email multiple times now. It's been online. I've asked for social media share. I created documents on my own for guidelines and application because the team didn't have the capacity. I shared all of that via email. So that's not a silo. Asking for an update repeatedly, going back 2 to 3 months now on a parks master plan and being told there's nothing, or not even being responded to, and to find out from our parks vendor who provided me a timeline of communication that not only has discussion taken place, formal actions taken place is different. I actually asked the board to approve formal action and then took it. That's the process the law describes is supposed to be taken. In this case, a committee of wonderful volunteers who have asked to help the township have been misled by you. You're instructing them to take action unilaterally without board consent. That's illegal. Number one.
That's
That is
100%
not
false.
false. You've given them formal action to take, and they have. The board has never opined on a steering committee, on a process for the plan. We haven't even met the people doing the plan. We haven't been extended that courtesy. So I don't understand what
Again, the branding project,
You're-
once the
you're com-
stakeholder took place, those meetings set up, then the board was involved. Board
This
wasn't
is-
involved in that.
This is a master plan. It's a totally different issue with a totally different board. And the expectation has been requested multiple times by multiple board members and denied. That's the point. If the branding effort had different requests that weren't answered to, then that's fair. But this is a separate matter. It's a bigger matter. It's a larger matter and a larger concern. We have pending work associated with this because we put it on hold. The committee has been told, a communications and outreach committee has been deemed and determined to be the steering committee. We haven't had any open discussion about that. They've taken formal action.
Yeah,
The
if
board
it's another
hasn't.
project you want to micromanage and chase everyone off. I
Well,
guess that's
well,
your
hey, if you want to
prerogative.
if you want to call it micromanaging, that's fine. You can coin that phrase and try and continue trying to associate that with me. But out of respect, since you wanted everyone to be a liaison this year, I would hope that the parks liaison would have some sort of interaction with the parks master plan based on what you.
No, that's your prerogative. You can be liaison for everything at this point.
Well, Ryan, it doesn't seem like that's what I'm trying to do. That would be more fitting to the way you've weaponized the OTAK group to take in favorable projects and work on those in a silo. You can laugh and be dismissive and disrespectful all you want.
Yes, I weaponized
But the reality
volunteer
is
group.
you're hearing
This is just a shame. It's a
you're
shame. to
you're
see where
hearing
this
from
is
multiple board
evolved.
members that you're not communicating. The website's not updated with meeting minutes. Those are legal requirements. We've given no formal action or anything. And you're right. When I spoke to him, I said, I would encourage you to pause on formal action until the board can provide consensus and way ahead. And I would ask that you take time and consult with all the board members so that we can understand what you're working on and what you're doing. These are all in emails. I can share those. They're public records. I'm fine with that. I've said nothing that I would try and keep a secret on. He said that he wanted to have individual conversations with board members. I agreed with that. Any conversation would be a step up at this point. And again, I'm not the only board member who's got this concern. So OTAK was ran differently in the past. It's not being ran that way now. If you're the zoning liaison, there's no reason that you should take a parks project and place that with OTAK exclusively and not communicate with anyone else. That's what's happened.
Okay, I've been the OTAK liaison for 3 years now, so
That's great. But
I-
you
so as
decided
far
that the
as
parks,
change-
but you decided the parks master plan was an OTAK matter exclusively on your own. That's the point. There's other people that have to make decisions with you. It can't just be a one person decide what they want to work on and direct on their own. There's a board of 3 people here. That's why I came to the board and asked for approval on the garden project and received it before I proceeded forward.
right.
That's how
And
that's
when-
supposed to work.
Sure. And when you want something done, you'll do it on your own. And when things don't work out the way you want, then it becomes a board issue.
If an associate tells me who's responsible for doing something that they don't have the capacity, you're exactly right. I'll offer to roll up my sleeves and chip in because that's leadership. It's not
No.
directing them to do things that
Yeah,
benefit you
micromanaging
individually.
and bullyism is not leadership.
That's
and
not
you're-
micromanaging and bullyism.
Mhm.
If you don't have capacity, the growing
Hey,
season
like I
starts
said, if you
in
want to
May,
take it over,
Ryan.
if you want to be the liaison, go ahead and make the motion. You be the liaison. You run with it.
Well, it's concerning that you want to continue to label me as a bully and all these other words. But I think if you reflect on this meeting and maybe listen to it after it's over, I would ask you to reflect a little bit on that. And I'm offering the why. I'm offering you an explanation. You're choosing not to listen, or you're dismissing it. That's your decision. But there's a reason that I'm bringing concerns to your attention along with another board member. And these have to do with the township collectively and the liability that we're supposed to be protecting and insulating the township from, not a personal gain. The community gardens I've talked about for over a year. If there's no capacity internally to work on those, then I'm not going to burden the team with it. If the board approves of the progress and to move forward, if I can contribute that effort, that's fine. How am I micromanaging something that no one else is working on? I don't understand that. As far as interviewing goes, it's in all of our interest to make sure a director hire has been screened by board members and interviewed. We did that with the administrator. We've done that with every hiring position has come through the board to date that I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the
Well-
opportunity to discuss it in an open session at minimum and approve a process. And in this case, that didn't happen. So I asked for that. That's not micromanaging. Again, that's what we're here to do.
Well, you're right. Actions and words have consequences, and everything you're doing here this evening, I'm sure will have lasting impact.
Okay, well, appreciate the threat. That's great. Trustee Taranto, do you have any comments here?
We kind of went through the same thing with the last board, and we had asked, again, very nicely, if we could have better communication, meetings recorded, minutes done. We had actually asked you that in public session, so it's not like it's something new.
Yeah, I know Ms. Kraft actually brought that up as a concern multiple times as well, because her job and actual duty and responsibility as a fiscal officer is to keep tabs of the minutes, to keep account of them, and noted that she had no minutes for multiple OTALK meetings, which still aren't online. They're not there. And the
As
law
I said,
requires that
all the minutes
happen
are at
at,
Township Hall.
it happens.
I'm not sure why they're not on the website. I couldn't tell you, but I know that they are all at Township Hall and on hand.
Okay, well,
I've
I-
asked for them though. I had asked for them via the administrator and I had never received them.
I don't know where
And
they're
again-
at Township Hall.
Again, we just had recently had a meeting where some minutes were approved because there hadn't been a meeting with COVID in a good amount of time. So they're all there. As far as the legality of it and what's been properly updated, I have no worries there.
Well, the March 2020 minutes could have been approved at the July 2020 meeting, and the July 2020 could have been approved at the March
Yeah,
11th meeting.
they're all on hand. I'm sure we can double check tomorrow. I don't want to say anything as far as who's handling what and be incorrect, but they are all there.
From an organizational standpoint, I don't think liaisons make sense anymore. I think it's led to confusion and contributed to that. I don't know if you the other board members want to agree or disagree, but I think we need to move forward. So I'd like to take some action here on how we move forward with both the liaison role and OTALK. Either board member want to opine here?
Well, I had stated that in the, during the, I believe, organizational meeting. I want to be involved in everything and know what's going on. And it felt like the liaisons kind of kept us separated.
They can't share information legally until we're in a meeting. So it doesn't really serve a purpose in that capacity. And that's where I struggle too. For sake of asking a question for clarity and that being interpreted as equating to a micromanager, then, then I have concerns as well. If I don't have access to information, I can't make an informed decision. And that's a disservice in my capacity as an elected official.
Part of the OTA presentation in the annual conference this year was the need to settle in at the beginning of the year of a plan and to look forward for the year, and have a strong plan going forward. So starting off the year, going in one direction, then making these changes and shifting gears is definitely adding to the confusion and internal dysfunction that we're experiencing here at the moment.
Well, I think if people just did what was requested, we wouldn't arrive at a position like this. And obey what the law calls for and the sunshine laws require. There wouldn't be a absence of information that's led to the board having to come together to discuss how we operate.
Yeah, everyone's been afforded the opportunity to submit whatever it is that they're looking to change and have the time to sit down and move forward. There's been plenty of outreach. So I completely disagree.
I guess I'm curious what you mean by everyone's been afforded an opportunity to change. What are you referring to?
We've just had the first meetings. You've got the group together, as far as sitting down with each of the elected officials and getting input. That's just happened here in the last few weeks. You're right at the beginning phase of this. So if there's something that you want to see change, I would think you would sit down and talk to that group, make your proposals and give the group time to put something together. I mean, this is just.
So again,
I feel this
They're an
morning.
has nothing to do with
advisory to the board. So we actually, as a board, advise them on what to work on and how to keep us informed. And I feel sorry for them because they're not provided the information that they should have to work both legally and as advisory to the board.
We did that last year. That's what I thought the purpose of the effort was. I met with the staff when we were absent an administrator at the time, and there was an entire chart that everyone agreed on. And COVID or not, there were meetings that took place after that. And this year we were told that there was no update to that. That's where the board was trying to direct the committee on what subcommittees and things of that nature we aligned and agreed upon. And we included staff in that for that reason, to align OTALK with our directors so that each of them had representation from an outreach perspective. So that labor and that effort has already been done. And again, I would echo that and reiterate, this isn't about what the committee's done or not done. It's about what the expectation is from the person that's guiding the committee, and that isn't being done. That's you, Trustee Rivers. So the last time that OTALK was compliant, Fiscal Officer Kraft led, and I'm going to make the motion now to reinstate Ms. Kraft as the liaison and consultant for OTALK and remove Trustee Rivers from that capacity.
Lisa, before I second that, is that something that you would be willing to do?
I guess it depends on what the role of, is considered. I mean, would I be happy to lend a hand, but do I see doing that long-term? No, to be honest, but I would be happy
I'll shape the motion. If the intent would be that you get OTALK compliant, and explain the purpose, reiterate the goals, get them up to speed on the board consensus and the decisions that were made previously, minutes process, the Zoom or whatever process so that it's more transparent, and get the OTALK group aligned in that regard. And then I don't foresee there being a need for a liaison because for example, when you and I were working on an OTALK matter before either of us were in office, we both presented to the board repeatedly on matters that were OTALK related. And that's the expectation, I think, that we should set with them. And I wanted to reiterate that if we're going to say that they're not there to make formal action and they're not there to do things formally on that regard, we have to be careful what we attempt to communicate. In a recent article that was submitted, for example, for the newsletter review, there was a mention that OTALK would be managing the Parks Master Plan on behalf of the township. And so those words equate to a formal public body. And as such, there's requirements and expectations associated with it. And I would just have expected more engagement with the board altogether before, first of all, that decision was made, but second of all, on expectations that didn't happen. So that's what I'm looking for personally, Ms. Kraft.
Okay. Like I said, if it's a kind of a, whoops, I just lost my head, my earpiece. If it's just, short term, then I can lend a hand.
Just to get best practices and expectations aligned, that would be on the board's behalf. So we have a lot of things to work on that have been expressed in this meeting, and that would be it. They should
Okay.
be self-sufficient from there, just like the old Parks Board and other committees were. We'll call back the motion for a vote then.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
No, and this isn't directed by any means towards our fiscal officer, Lisa Kraft, but I'm sure this is going to cause some disappointment with the group, as several other decisions here made tonight are going to cause a lot of disappointment with our staff.
All right. Next item is discussion and action regarding the Parks Master Plan. So I know the meeting took place today. I did not attend because of the concern over open meetings. And that's fine. Again, I don't think that in talking with the vendor, much of the stuff that needed to happen, it will happen either way. And the caution that I raised was continuing to take formal action without board guidance. So the vendor proposed meeting with each board member to get their feedback and preferences for sake of time, and then consolidating that and then coming to an open meeting to get consensus and alignment on way ahead. I would like to propose that as a fair approach and a viable next step to work with them on, pending any comments from the other board members.
Ben, could you state again what you're envisioning as a way ahead?
That the Parks Master Plan vendor would talk to each of us individually as board members. Made a good point in our discussion that if he does that, it'll give a more accurate portrayal of what we're interested in personally in the resident base that kind of is in touch with us. His experience, each elected official has kind of a unique resident following, and I agreed with that. And
Well,
and
I think we're automatically going to be included in their fact finding, talking to stakeholders. So that'll be automatic. What you might want is to invite them to our next board meeting and speak for 10, 15 minutes on their plan, what their process is. And then maybe, then we would take that forward with the OTALK to work with them.
Correct. We're on the same page. That's the goal. But in the interim, having a quick alignment with each of us was requested to get an understanding of what each of us values and kind of the direction we see things going and call out any concerns. The subsequent meeting you're describing is the one I mentioned where there's a public session on just general way ahead and information and alignment that we would take formal action at as needed as a board and provide consensus on. So the individual meetings would not be to subvert that at all. It would just be to calibrate as you were. If you remember a couple of meetings ago, I brought up that a typical project starts with something of that nature, and he agreed, but was under the impression based on conversation that he had already done that and didn't realize that the board had not approved the path they were on. And so that would be kind of starting over without losing any progress we've made. And I also want to make sure that in my mind anyway, there's a difference between an outreach and communications committee and a steering committee for something like this. I think in talking with the Parks Company, steering committee is typically, you ensure that there's, more broad representation and that kind of thing. And I do appreciate the members of OTALK. I think they're great. I know a couple of them personally. I think they're awesome community members and wonderful for that role. But I do want to make sure that we look at this as a collective board once we've spoken to the gentleman from the vendor and consider if there are other opportunities to expand on the steering committee for this specific workload. And that kind of goes to the comments we've had in the past about subcommittees and why those are important, and making sure that we're tapping into all of the different groups in the community and that everyone has the chance to be represented in that light. And to your point as well, Trustee Taranto, I think we have to be careful in this specific workload because a couple of the committee members have a vested interest in parks that relate to their involvement in other entities, namely the private soccer clubs. And I just want to make sure that we're open about that, and that if there's any perceived issue that we address it. I don't know that there will be, but I know I got an email forwarded to me that that from a resident actually that was supportive. It was at the last meeting actually that I asked you to forward that to me, I believe, and you did. But it related to one private soccer club being given preferential treatment over another. And the email I received actually mentioned the OTALK members specifically and expressed concern because they are part of a different soccer club who received they perceived got special consideration for field use because of their involvement with OTALK. But I did respond to that, and I don't believe that's the case. And I shared the story I shared at the board meeting on the background there, and step-by-step kind of timeline of what transpired. But the point is that was perceived independently from a resident. I don't know them at all, never spoken to them. And so we have to be mindful of that as we go through this process. And we have to set some ground rules as far as how the steering committee steers, what they're doing online, what comments they're making, and make sure that it doesn't, jeopardize the integrity of any of the work being done. For example, I know I spoke with Fiscal Officer Kraft earlier today and asked about if she was able to attend the meeting. She said she was. And how'd it go? It went well. but there was a mention on the call about sharing the survey specifically with groups that are associated with soccer clubs. So there's 500 responses that come in all from one group in the township. That can throw a survey, and unless we take the same approach with other groups, we have to be mindful of that from a survey standpoint.
And they did say they shared it on their own personal space, social media accounts also.
And they did. And I saw it, for example, on our neighborhood social media page this weekend. It popped up. The point isn't that anyone's wrong or whatever. It's that we haven't agreed on ground rules or expectations or even shared our concerns. And stuff like that's popping up from individual residents already. Then we just need to have a voice and participate in this to make sure that we aren't putting ourselves in a position of liability or concern with all of our residents. And again, I know they shared that throughout, but if you post something on a social media page, that's a totally different approach than emailing a roster, for example, individually. And so it's just something we have to be mindful of, is the only call out that I'm making. So with that, that's all I would like to propose with the Parks Master Plan, is that we achieve consensus here on a way ahead. I would like to ask them to engage each board member and discuss their concerns and desires and things of that nature that he brought up in the email. And then at the next board meeting, when they're able to come, we can meet and go over their timeline, steering committee, all of that type thing on a way ahead. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So Trustee Taranto, are you giving consent to move ahead with that plan?
Yes.
Trustee Rivers, do you have any objections? Okay, hearing none, moving over to, if you want to note that consensus was obtained, the discussion and possible action with the Township Pool and Aquatic Center. I know that our staff came in over the weekend and they worked with an individual from the pool company on rec desk to try and resolve the outstanding items. And in the last meeting, we came to consent that we would not alter the price of the pool membership, that we would have swimming lessons, and we were still waiting for feedback on the upfront scheduling. I do know in talking with Mary Ann, she sent out that update on what was handled at the weekend meeting and what will be handled subsequent. They're confident they can get the scheduling set up. And so I think we need to go ahead and come to consensus on whether we'll schedule or not at the front end. Is there any concern with scheduling at the front end?
Probably
Is there
should
a-
have had Mary Ann in the meeting. Is it possible to bring her in, or is it?
I don't know that she's still in the office at this time. But I have spoken to her when I was in the office, even today. She's going to start setting it up this weekend already with Megan from Rec Desk. So agreed with the plan to handle that on the front end. And I believe there was an email that she provided confirming that. If anyone else on the call has, I don't know if Mike Kelly or anybody's on the call, but if there's anybody on the call that can, they can do it, and she's going to start doing it, I guess, is the point. Trustee Taranto, start setting it up in a system this week. So there's an assumption that we're going to do it that she conveyed today and in the emails.
At what point do you think we can make an announcement to our residents on the exact procedure?
Well, if we can get consent today, the goal was to get enough detail to include in the newsletter. So what they're going to do this week, she's going to set everything up from a schedule standpoint, and then from the one part that she wanted help from Megan on was purchasing online, so that we can set up the pool pass for purchase online, and was really excited to get that started. She thinks it's a really good idea to go ahead and go live and have them able to purchase. So if we can get consent, we already have it on the price. If we can get consent to let her develop the upfront scheduling and the online transaction this week, then I think we'll have enough to, once that's done, to communicate out in the newsletter. By the end of the week, we can send that into Guide and have the newsletter finalized. As far as where the location is and the steps and the cost, and they'll have to schedule up front. Marianne also shared a really good idea that for day passes, if we want to use Rec Desk, they thought when they were on site, her idea was to have day passes purchased the day of online. And that way, if there's inclement weather, you'll be aware. It'll be more accurate. But if we did that, then, the prior 2 days, everyone with a pass could schedule their time. And then the day of, any remaining capacity would be available for day passes. I thought that was a great idea. And so if you combine all of the updates she provided, and then I know Mike Kelly emailed as well that they've talked to the food vendor over the prior years, and they are planning now to open the concession. However, initially with a limited menu of handheld stuff, potentially nachos and things like that, but nothing that would require more time to prepare. Popcorn, nachos, things like that, in addition to an increased handheld menu, so that they can get the process flowing more effectively.
The only question I would have about the day passes, I think that's a great idea, but if there is an event that shuts down the pool, let's just say a diaper explodes or something like that, then would we be giving refunds, or is it you purchase it and it is what it is?
The Highland Pool said that their website, and I brought this up to Marianne too, she brought that point up. They actually have a disclaimer on their website that says, once you enter the pool, it's open to chance. I mean, I think if we had a unique event like that happened and it cut into someone's window, we could always use discretion and make a decision. Maybe we can pre-print day passes, and if we have an event like that, then the pool manager could distribute those to the day pass people as a 3-hour window or something. And there's ways around it. It would take setting up on the front end, but there's a way to do it. We would also have a list, because of using Rec Desk, of everyone who purchased a day pass, so we could coordinate with them the resolution if we needed to, if that makes sense. And Marianne also had the proposed windows. There's 3 windows of entry. I think there's 2 that are 3 hours and 1 that's 2.5 hours, because the last hour they wouldn't have the 30-minute cleaning. They would leave early, and so there would be that 30 minutes before the operation shut down. So effectively everyone would have 2.5 hours to swim. So with that, we have pretty much everything pending consent today to move forward with the newsletter. As far as
do you want Marianne to join via my phone, speakerphone?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, I got Marianne here on speaker. Marianne, Ben, I guess talk or see if she can hear
Sure.
you.
Can you hear me okay, Marianne?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ben.
Okay. I'm just sharing the updates that you've provided over the past few days, including our conversation today on site. So you've provided the 3 windows of time that you recommended, that were 3 hours, 3 hours, and then 2.5 for that last session. And
Yes,
then you also shared that you were confident with the ability to schedule up front, but had some work to do this week with Megan on setting up the purchasing system. Is that correct?
I'm not so much, we're setting up with Megan is I want to go, the purchasing part, because that's as far as we can take it is up to where they purchase. And she has a dummy, township website and stuff that we can make sure that it goes on through to the very end. And then if that's so, we should be pretty well set to go on with pool passes.
And then also, can you express whether or not you feel good about the upfront scheduling and the ability to set that up? I think you had sent the email saying you felt okay, but I want you to share with the other board members.
And we're talking about the blocks of time and the reservations, correct?
Correct.
Nancy and I set it up for the first day. And that's the second part of meeting with Megan. We want to make sure we have it set up right before we continue through to, the last day, September 5th. Because the way both Nancy and I understand it, we have to go in and copy and paste for every day. But we want to make sure that is the way, or if there's a shortcut way so that it can be done. And that's the second part of that meeting.
Okay, but you've tested the scheduling so far. The part where you said in your email you stopped is paying for it because no one wanted to be the credit card of.
That's for the pool passes, yeah, because we're the way we have our mock resident side, but it would go through to Point and Pay and it would charge our credit cards. So we
Right.
don't want that to happen.
Okay, that makes sense. So from an upfront scheduling standpoint, do you feel confident that you can make that work with Megan's assistance this week? As far as you're just having her double check and then looking for potential shortcuts to help copy and paste, what you've already done into the days ahead.
Yes. Yeah, that's basically it. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
and he had sent me an email when somebody had asked about it earlier. I can't even remember. I've had so many emails, and I had sent her an email, and I told her what we needed and wanted, and she kind of put it in an email, and then she also said, if you need, to just call me, we can set up a Zoom, and I can walk you through it. So that's what Nancy and I both agreed we wanted to do to make sure that it was there, it was ready to, that when we got it in and said, okay, everybody, you can start, reserving your days, that, it was ready to go.
And you made the point to tell me that since we're doing a 48-hour scheduling window, really
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to turn that on until May. So we had time to make adjustments as needed, right?
Right. Because the other people I've talked to email, but talked to in our roundtables and things, and the one had their pool open through last summer, said that they only allowed a two-day window that people could rent or reserve their time because they're. So and that seemed to be the consensus of the way to go.
And Highland Pool said the same thing in that email I forwarded you guys. They're doing the 48 hours, but they're doing 24 hours for day passes. But I think I brought your point up, Marianne, about same day passes and how that would really help us mitigate refund requests, right? So good
Right.
idea. Appreciate that.
So what was the final decision on like pool furniture?
No pool furniture.
What I understood with pool furniture, we are not allowing any use of our furniture because it would the cleaning time between the
Take too
rental
long.
times. Yes, but we're going to encourage the residents. They can bring their own chairs, or if they want a blanket or whatever, to bring their own.
So it really sounds to me like we're ready to go with the newsletter. Pool
Correct.
passes ready to go. We can
Yeah.
knock that out, and
Well, yeah.
I'd like to see
The
us
only
get that.
thing that's holding us back is I would like to be able to, in that blast, have a date when they can start doing their pool passes, which after Thursday we will know. And then we'll need to send out another blast explaining, well, we need to put in the blast how this software program is going to work. And that there'll be 3 weekends right now. I think that CPM will be over at the pool so that the people can get their fobs, that we're not going to use those old cruddy pool pass things anymore, that we're going to be using fobs. So that's the big thing.
So what's the
It's-
soonest that we can get the newsletter out that you guys determine? What do you think?
Well, I spoke with the guide, since this is the next agenda topic anyway. They're polishing up all the submissions and the editing and doing everything now that is required to get it published for a draft review. The only pending submission right now is the pool. And I talked to Kathy and she agreed that she sent that example previously that I provided everyone to review, that if we just provided them with the general topics, and then, once Mary Ann, you said you're meeting with Megan Wednesday or Thursday, right?
It's Thursday.
Thursday. So if Mary Ann meets with Megan on Thursday and confirms that, then on Friday, I can finalize with Guide the websites and the links to purchase the pass. And pending board consent today on the scheduling up front and everything else that's outstanding, the newsletter would be ready to go by next week.
That's awesome. Okay.
Hey, Marianne, if you want to test that credit card, we could probably call Point and Pay and see if they'll just give us a window of time with no fee, or a credit card number we could run with no fee so we could test it.
Alrighty. We'll, if Megan can't get it to go, we'll go in that direction. Okay.
Yeah, that
Sounds
sounds
good.
good, Mary Ann. I think you've got a good plan in place, and we'll look forward to hearing from you Thursday, okay?
Alrighty. I'll let you know as soon as the meeting's over. Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking time to talk with us today.
You might want to discuss Mary from CPM. When we were at this meeting and we were getting excited, and I know in the contract it says 3 weekend days. Mary was wondering if maybe one of those weekend days should be like a middle of the weekday, like during early afternoon or something, when the parents are home alone and the kids are at school, to get the fobs for the family. And I said that wasn't my decision. It would have to be a decision, of higher ups. So maybe that's something to think about too.
We will. And Mary Ann, if you don't mind, on Thursday after your meeting, if you can put that into the email as well.
Sure.
And then at the next board meeting that week, next week coming up, we can discuss all of those details as well.
All right. I can do.
All right. Thank you, Mary Ann.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Well, that covered the newsletter update that I plan to provide. Is there any other questions on the newsletter right now?
Well, if I could just circle back around with the pool for the pool. So the consent, did we reach consensus on allowing the Parks Department
Sorry.
to go ahead and set up the reservation system to manage pool capacity?
Right, I have not. No, I think Trustee Taranto was waiting to hear from the source there and got her on the phone, which I appreciate. Is there consent to do upfront scheduling then?
Yes.
Yes, for me as well.
Moving forward, I'm glad to see us have a plan. Our residents absolutely were ready for us to have a plan, so I'm glad to see that we got this knocked out and all of Mary Ann and Nancy's hard work on that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know Mike Kelly just joined the call. Mike, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. There he
Yes.
is.
I'm on my phone, so bear with me. This is
No,
new
it's
to me.
good. Yeah, it's
thank-
good reception. So,
Thanks to you.
Mike, we were just talking through the pool. Mary Ann called in. She shared that the upfront scheduling system is in place and they're going to verify that the way they configured it is proper before they copy across the entire season and have to go back and fix everything. They're going to have the first one validated, which is a good decision. And that they're going to test the pool pass purchasing process on Thursday as well. And then, so the board just gave consent to use upfront scheduling. And I know the other open items that we hadn't finalized related to food. And I know when we met with Fred and on site, there was a discussion about using the concession staff to work the exit of the pool. And now it sounds like we'll go back with having concessions, but we'll modify the menu so it's not to burden staffing too much. Can you share what updates you have, please?
We are going with, like I mentioned to you in the email, we're going with more prepackaged. We have Gold Medal offers prepackaged popcorn, nachos, obviously the ice cream and candy, prepackaged nacho cheese sauces. So as much prepackaged as we possibly can. G&J Pepsi are going to provide 2 vending machines at various places in the pool. That way the lines are less with the vending machines, more energy drinks, which I think is popular. I think Fred still intends to have 1 or 2 of his employees at a table, probably with an umbrella with the sun, but at a table over by the black gates where someone can monitor who's going out and keep people from coming in through the exit.
Okay, great.
So if
Thanks.
I can answer any more questions, I'd be happy to, but that's for right now. Other than the pool, the mechanical issues, well, lack of issues, I guess, at this point, which is good. If there's anything else you need, just feel free to ask.
I know you sent an update too, that there's just a couple of small issues that that popped up that you resolved mechanically. And so everything's good to go then with the operation?
I would say we are 70%, 75% on the positive end. I fired up the slide pump, the geyser pump, and the activity pump this morning, and everything fired up as it should. Last week when we fired up everything, some of the gaskets and seals and one of the valves on one of the pumps were leaking. So as soon as those issues came, I put an order in to Patterson Pools, and they have all the necessary items that I need. They will order them. Hopefully they should be in within a week or 2. And then once we get those in, we should be good. I'm hoping to fire up the pool boilers sometime this week to get those running. And then once they're running, have them PM, preventative maintenance service on them. That way they're tip top shape. So far, cross fingers, we're in good shape.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions. I'll pause for the other board members.
I'm good.
All right, hearing no other questions, Mike, I think we're all set. If you want to drop your video and finish up there, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm on my camera. I can't see myself, so I don't know if I'm online, but I'm just
No,
trying
you're
to-
online. We could see it. The French fry looked great, by the way. But thank you for taking time to call in and provide the update. So I don't have any other Ms. Kraft, any other in which we had. It sounds like we can move forward with the food plans and all do.
No, but
Uh,
the grab and go type foods that aren't vending related, is there going to be cash? I just need to understand from a process standpoint if I need to
Right.
account for that.
I think they're going to probably have to have the reason I brought up the vending machine, and it'll work out. I'm indifferent as far as concession goes. Mike, I don't know if
cash. I am not, honestly, I don't know at this point. I know the two pop machines potentially, I believe, are card only. So you'd have to talk to Fred or Mary Inter on the concession part.
okay, Ms. Kraft, I don't know if we can provide a firm way ahead there. I haven't
That's
talked.
fine. Just as long as it's on somebody's radar to make a decision on that, that'd be great.
And we can add that on to Monday's discussion for the regular meeting. We'll have the updates from Mary Ann anyway for the pool. But we'll have handhelds. I have no problem with that. Is there not any other board member that's okay with the handheld approach that Mike laid out?
No, I don't.
Okay, so it sounds like we have consent for everything then that would need to put in a newsletter, and we'll have the links and everything by Friday. So I think we're good on the pool discussion, unless there's any other feedback from board. Hearing none, going to the last topic, the newsletter. It shared the updates as part of the pool discussion there, but all of the topics and articles were submitted outside the pool, and I'll work on getting those updates through Mary Ann sent off to Guide so we can get the newsletter out at the earliest possible time.
Does Bays still do the printing of it?
That's my understanding, that they would handle everything.
Maybe Guide should reach out to them and have it on their radar that we needed that printed ASAP.
Yeah, I can tell Kathy, and she's aware. She knows that time's of the essence here.
I have nothing else regarding the newsletter. I did have a question about the administrator,
Okay,
just to have a direction for the staff. Last time this happened, I believe you were the point. Did you want to do that again?
well, I was thinking about that, and I know that at the onset of the call, this would just have to do with the administrator position in general, as far as a topic goes, because I don't want to deviate from the agenda. I know that organizational meeting was limited to specifically to OTALK, but we have on the agenda discussion and possible action related to the township administrator, and this question would qualify for that, I believe. The only concern I would say is, even though that the comments made weren't consistent with our agenda, I would have to be based on, if there was an issue surfaced through HR about, how I behave, how I lead or what I've done in the past. I looked over now as the chair. So I'm open to your suggestion. If you want to, for example, Trustee Taranto, since I don't think it would be the person making the concern or sharing the concern, or the person that's involved in that concern would be ideal. It leaves you as a short list. If you wanted to simply forward on things or direct traffic in the interim, I would find that sufficient for me. And then I can do the legwork or whatever. I just don't want to put any staff members in a position where they're uncomfortable until we consider if they did give feedback, what it was and what they would propose as a resolution. Does that make sense?
Yes. And we can discuss this more at a regular meeting after. I'm a little confused on. Do you want to do a resolution for that?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, we're on, make a motion to approve resolution 21-118 to allow trustee Grumbles to coordinate.
Stop. You're not on 118 anymore. You're on 120.
Okay, sorry.
That's right.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-120 to allow trustee Grumbles to work with Isaac and Wiles on the township administrator position.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
No, and I believe trustee Grumbles has to recuse himself because he has official staff complaints against him.
Well, I don't think I've seen the official staff complaints. I don't know if that's required, but I'm happy to revise the prior motion and allow trustee Taranto to coordinate with Isaac and Wiles accordingly.
I don't think we should just throw out any statement out there. That's not true. I think we can move forward. Unless you want me to reread it.
I mean, if that's fine, it being safe, I don't know that there's any a whole lot of work other than coordinating with them a time to come in and meet an executive session with the board and discuss, way ahead on the township administrator position. So I didn't request a motion to make a decision. I made a motion to request to coordinate with Isaac and Wiles. So that was the intent, to have them come to a meeting and discuss with the board collectively the best path forward is. So I don't know why I would need to recuse myself either.
Let's just
I'm-
move forward.
Okay, so there's a vote to approve that, and I'll schedule them I'll ask them to come to our next board meeting to talk about the township administrator position. Any other questions on the agenda?
I do
And
not.
Trustee Taranto, are you okay as the acting administrator then to coordinate between staff and the board or work?
Sure.
Okay. Make a motion to appoint trustee Taranto as the interim administrator.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers. Mr. Rivers.
Okay, well, you have a quorum there. And I'm looking at the agenda really quickly. There's one other item. I just don't know if it would, no, it wouldn't qualify here. I'm not going to bring it up till the next meeting. But there was a request made at the beginning of the meeting. It's not on the agenda, and I'll address that at the next meeting accordingly. Believe that's it. I make a motion to approve resolution 21-122, meeting adjournment.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Thank you.